we are speaking about veterans in hip hop and specifically underground hip hop. Both Murs and Slug are considered, some of the more well-known underground artists. They've been touring and putting out albums since the 90s, mid 90s. So they've been doing this for a long time.
You've been listening to them for a long time?
Yeah, I've been listening to Murs and Atmosphere. I think I found out, started getting into both of them around the same time. So probably freshman year of high school. So probably 05, 06, maybe 04. So yeah, quite a while. And they've been my favorite. I've loved them since then. I've been a huge fan of both of them. Both their solo stuff and group stuff for a really long time.
I have to say, when we were doing Jurassic 5 and I had mentioned, if someone says, if you're like, hey, I really want to get into underground hip hop, and they tell you in your top three, I don't know who the third person would be, but they're going to tell you 11 times out of 10, they're going to tell you Jurassic 5 and Atmosphere.
I would say Jurassic 5, Atmosphere, and like Big L. Would be like the underground kings. I would say Big L is still underground.
No one, at least in Northern California, no one's telling you to listen to
maybe
Big L. I think that's
the artist. Maybe Keek the Sneak or something.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's a solid suggestion. But I'm thinking, like, when I asked in high school, like, what underground people can I listen to, it would probably be...
or just living legends in general.
So I checked out some Atmosphere back in the day, and I just wasn't... I didn't see what the hype was. It wasn't really... Yeah. It wasn't what I was looking for.
Yeah. I think what is unique about Atmosphere and Slug's writing is he pretty much coined or came up with emo rap. He was the first artist to really break through of being really emotional in his songs and vulnerable and talking about his vices and things that are wrong with him and things that he deals with in real life. There wasn't too much of that going on at the time in the late 90s, early 2000s on a big level. And the fact that he's white, I think, helped him gain a huge traction. Because at that time, when he was blowing up in the early 2000s, underground hip-hop was exploding. It was, the internet was just coming out. People were finding out about underground. It was much easier to find out about it on the forums and things of that nature. And I think a lot of kids could relate. High school kids, college kids could relate to Slug on a certain level.
I wonder if that's why, like, Kid Cudi and him got, like, they just did so well back then, because there are two people that I couldn't get.
He wrote depressing songs, and people gravitate towards that. That's why, emo rock and punk and, sad, depressing music is popular with high school kids, because they can connect to it. It's something that they can relate to deal with whatever they're going through.
Yeah, and like with that, I can't speak to all black people, but I mean, at least like family-wise, I can't think of anyone in my family that's like, would tell me, yeah, you should definitely hit up Atmosphere.
Right.
Yeah, you should definitely listen to Kid Cudi. Like, but those two were really big in high school and in the early 2000s. And so, like, I don't know if it's just the emo culture just really connected with other cultures, but it wasn't. I never caught on with me.
I feel like if you didn't have to be into hip hop to like Atmosphere. I felt as if a lot of kids who didn't really care about hip hop, they didn't care about the culture, they didn't care about learning the history of it, but they would be into Atmosphere or Eminem because it felt safe for them, and they, it wasn't too odd for them to be listening to that, even though they didn't really like hip hop. So I do think Atmosphere has a lot of those types of fans.
It's interesting because I think about, like, well, what else was hot, like, around the 2000s? Like, the hyphy movement was really big. The crunk movement was really big. But those are really, like, genres where you can tune in, you can dance to, and then you can tune out. Like, there's no content in there that, like, you're learning anything. There's no stories behind that to where you're like, okay, like, this really moves me. So, like, then if, like, maybe if you... I'm just going to think of someone random, like Busta Rhymes comes along, where, like, but he puts out a lot of party stuff, too. I have to think of a better one. Dre puts out a lot of, like, not in-depth stuff along with Snoop Dogg, but it's just like more vibe stuff. So like people can just check in and then check back out. But I'm trying to even to think of someone that I really connected with back then, and then comparing them to the content that Atmosphere is putting out. And it's like trying to think of like, okay, well, what's the difference between their content, and why do people feel, as you said, more safe and more comfortable with Atmosphere's content than they do with rapper B's content? So I'll have to take a look into that.
It's an interesting dialogue for sure.